Business consultants across America. What are sales going to look like in 2025? In fact, what are businesses going to look like next year? It's a crazy time. It's a very, very interesting time. And I'm so proud that I have an incredible panel of consultants here today. Thank you so much for joining me, ladies and gentlemen.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Before I begin, I'd like to start by handing over to Theresa French, my co-host. Thank you so much for agreeing to do this, Theresa. It's a wonderful opportunity for the industry to start delving into some of the problems and issues and, of course, the solutions that we have. Now, I invited you on the show, and you and I get on so well together because you have an insight into the world of business consultants, because you work with several of them, big ones, small ones, and you know their pain and you can see it from a holistic perspective. Perhaps you can just kick off and just try to bring some sense to the world of consulting right now.
No pressure, bringing sense to a very chaotic, crazy time in our world for all of us, all businesses, including consultants. Well, it is a pleasure to be here, Scott. I really appreciate the opportunity to bring myself and my friends with me. And we're just really looking forward to digging into what is it going to look like as best as we can tell based on what we're seeing. Clearly, 6 months ago, we would never have thought about having this conversation. So perhaps in another 6 months, it'll be another conversation. But what I'm seeing primarily across a lot of the industry as a whole, you know, early March and April was very riddled with fear, uncertainty, vulnerability, and a lot of things mentally and logistically shut down. And no one wanted to make a move because we don't know what's coming. And this we weren't expecting. So what is coming next? I think we're starting to lighten up a little bit where, you know, for the lack of a better term, because I don't like saying the new normal, because it was never normal to begin with. It's not going to be normal again. It's always going to have its unique properties. But where we're going is we're adjusting to the change. We're starting to go from what we did know to, again, what we know again. And when I talk to my consultants and my clients, change is hard. Change and adjustment and new things in our schedule and new demands, those are all things that are very hard to adjust to. And it's never the change that gets us. It's the transition. It's the thing that happens from I know this to I don't know this. How do I get back to knowing again? How do I get back to that, getting past the vulnerability of not knowing how to navigate things in the moment? Things become a little predictable, and I don't think they're going to be predictable for a while. I think we've got a lot of change yet to come. And so what I'm seeing actually, and maybe I'm a little bit Pollyanna and maybe a little positive on that side, but for a lot of my consultants, I am seeing that focus on opportunity of what we're going through. What's good about this, and how can I adjust? How can I make a new opportunity? And it's because of panels like this, and I think it's because people are coming together like we are to depend on one another for our insights and our experience and advice and best way to chart forward. And I've also seen a lot of collaboration. I've seen consultants that used to be a solopreneur only, working with their corporate clients or working with their executives, whatever their target market was, to suddenly bringing on a bench of members, bringing on other consultants to fill in areas to increase that value proposition to their clients, because it's no longer about us. We're not in this alone any longer. And I'm seeing a lot of collaboration. I am still, unfortunately, seeing a lot of fear. You know, let's face it, change is hard, like I just said. So what I really want to focus on today is how can we be a support to those that are in the industry as well as our clients? How can we double down on the service and the deliverables that we're offering our clients when our clients are also facing the fear, when our clients are also vulnerable and in unrest and not knowing where to go? This is a time more than any that as consultants, we are of great need in the world because we have the insights to help chart the waters. So with that said, I'm seeing a lot of positive, but I'm also seeing a lot of fear and uncertainty, and that's why we're here together. So let's talk about it.
Yeah, and I'd like to reiterate that, Theresa, because one of the reasons we wanted to do this with business consultants is because it's a needed service right now, more than ever, and that leads to an incredible opportunity. So let's talk about the change. Rick, if you don't mind, I'm going to start with you. So let's go. On a scale of 1 to 10, in 5 years' time, how different do you think your consultancy is going to be?
By 2025, I mean, that's a great question. I guess that's why we're here. One thing that we've been focusing on, and I think that we're going to continue to do, is diversify. So we've got our typical projects that are going to be our engagements that might have a fixed length, might be a software project or something like that. But we recognize that we've got to have a recurring revenue type of model, so that we're starting to offer like managed services such as marketing and HR and that sort of thing to support our clients. Our clients are going through, all sorts of different issues, and they're up in the air about, what to do, how to scale up, how to, roll back and that sort of thing. And when we can jump in and really pitch in and say, hey, we can do this part of your business, we can manage this part of your business, they feel more comfortable. We're in, I guess, deeper ingrained in their business operations, and it establishes for us a longer term recurring revenue model.
Okay, so you're looking at recurring revenue models. In fact, that's something I want to talk about later towards the end. I'm very interested in how we can start looking for additional sources of revenue, not just from us, but for our clients as well. But just Rick, in terms of your belief in terms of change, in 5 years' time, do you see your organization as being a 10 change, completely radically different to what it is now? Or do you kind of still feel it as being, I think we're going to be very similar to what I'm doing at the moment?
I think we're going to be pretty similar. I'm sorry, I apologize, I didn't answer that. Probably I would say like a 2 or 3.
Wow.
We've got some ideas on some things that we want to do, but I don't see real drastic change for us.
Good. Okay. Right. Interesting. Donnell, do you agree with that? Well, obviously for your business.
Well, see, I'm in a different niche. I'm in the, I consult to the government. So my audience changes, but they don't change much. So our change will be mostly going to more home at work, working from home, which in my community is going to be hard because we're dealing with the intelligence community. So it's going to be hard for them to change that model. So I don't see myself changing that much. I haven't changed at all, and I've been working. So I told Theresa, you remember that model, whatever you focus on the most, you give strength to. And I think if you focus on fear, you're gonna give strength to that fear. So my age is, I'm in that group that they say are dying, but yet and still, I was called out while young people were sitting at home. I'm called out to work. I've been working since March, February. I see myself working. I already was told that they have me for another year. Matter of fact, when I leave this meeting, I'm gonna have another meeting with another government agency. So I'm in that niche that I don't see right now. Only thing that's changed with me is the mask. You going to work, you have to put on a mask. But when I get into my workspace, I take the mask off. But I am a troubleshooter. So my business is troubleshooting. I deal with most of you guys, industry. I help the government. I have one of those unique positions. I was in the military. I worked for the government for a long period of time. I'm a contractor. Now I'm a sub. So I know all the angles. I work with Fortune 500 companies like Booz and Raytheon, and they don't know me per se, but I work with the contracting officers. I'm the one to put a lot of them on contracts, or the government contracting officer that will call me and ask me about certain things. So I'm one of those unique, and I work with not only I make state and local government. I work with schools. So I'm all out there. So where do I see myself in 5 years? They probably gonna work me until I die. That kind of
well,
thing.
good.
So I don't see myself changing. I'm an informer. I'm a troubleshooter. I'm the one that's discussing all these issues. I'm not in fear. So
good.
Fear can go. I call him Mr. Coronavirus. Go ahead.
So Donnell, what I'm hearing from you and Rick is positive.
Yes.
You guys do not see a need to change drastically in terms of your businesses, and you're going to still continuously get a lot of work.
I serve the customer, but basically my job is a servant. I've been serving all my life, and that's a positive term, not a negative term. I know nowadays it's got to seem a negative term. No, that's a positive term. When you serve your customer, I serve them. What do you want me to do? And I do it, and I keep working. That's the
And keep going,
difference. When you
regardless.
serve people, you keep working.
Yes, sir. Thank you. Thank you, Donnell. Let's jump to Laurie then. So Laurie, do you agree? Are you also feeling that your business is not going to need to change that much? How are you experiencing change or lack thereof?
Well, I'm really a solopreneur. So for me, I don't have any big company behind me. I have my own company. And from what it is at this moment, I don't think it'll change. From what it was, 6 months ago, it's changed drastically already. So I was really somebody who would go into the office. I would go in and sit with clients, and it would really be that, collaboration. And of course, now we can't do that. For the most part, and so a lot of it is now online. So that was a whole new thing. But in my opinion, I think that will continue into the future. I think it is really just the way that our industry is going. I think, and one of the things that I think contributes to that is the fact that commercial real estate is taking such a huge hit with COVID. It's not going to come back anytime soon. These companies are realizing that they can have workers work from home, and so they can save money, they save rent, so the commercial real estate industry is going to have a problem. But I think as far as consultants, our clients will be at home. And so it's going to, in my opinion, be a lot of online working. And that's kind of where I am already. So for me, in 5 years, I don't see that changing. I do think that there's some things that need to be improved so that we can do that better as far as technology and all. But I think that for me, it'll be the same.
Okay. Laurie, are you a B2B or a B2C consultant at Castle
B2B.
Business Consultant? So B2B. Have you noticed a change potentially in the way that you will be approaching clients specifically? Because in the previous panels I've conducted, it seems easier to get to the more senior management these days. Have you noticed that? I mean, in terms of the way that in which you're pitching your services, have you noticed that change?
I haven't noticed that it's easier, but I also deal with small businesses. So for me, a lot of times the person who is the CEO or is in charge, or the person I need to talk to, is also pretty much on the front lines. They're in the business, they're working the business. I haven't dealt with, in a previous life, I worked with very large companies. Here in Virginia, and what I've been doing the last few years, it's been smaller companies. I really am passionate about helping entrepreneurs to get their businesses running, efficiently and focused, and with good business foundation. So that's really my focus. So for those people, it's fairly easy for me to find them. Doesn't mean they always want a consultant, but it's easy to find them.
Yeah, that's a good point. Okay, good. So they are still receptive, and in fact, I think now more than ever, they are receptive, and it's good to hear that again positive, and again looking like the industry is not changing. A previous panel discussion I did was with media and media salespeople, people in the media, radio stations, etc. Every single one of them said in 5 years' time, 10 out of 10 change, radically different. It's amazing to hear that. Yeah. That's why I'm so intrigued to hear you. Patrick, are you a 0, a 2, a 5, or a 10?
I think I'm gonna be the first one that gives it a number.
Okay.
Be a trendsetter, Pat.
Consultants don't like to put an exact figure in. Well, it could be this.
I feel as if we've been stuck. We've been stuck in this weird world where we're watching too much news on TV and things in these panel discussions, and it seems that no one ever answers the question. So I thought we were like going down that road.
Well, what's your number, Patrick?
Give us your number.
Show us how it's done.
I think it always changes. I think Laurie and I are probably very similar in what we're doing. I'm not exactly sure where she's consulting in that world, but that's my world too. It's the entrepreneurial small business people, and I do think it's gonna. I think on a scale of 1 to 10, I think it's gonna be a 7. I'm old enough to know that things change over a 5 to 10 year period constantly. but I do think there'll be more change in the next 5 years than there has been. I've run into all the same issues. I think that Lori was just doing a good job explaining a lot of the things that I have run into, and Rick and Darnell too. I mean, Darnell seems to have had the least amount of change at this point in time, but it is a situation where, for me, my entire business model and my entire way of billing people was built upon in person. That was the value that I was selling to people, is that they get 30 plus years of experience as a CFO and a CPA. And so when people see that, and I'm in their office and they're interacting with me, frankly, it's easier for them to see the value. So taking that and going online, or using, Zoom or Microsoft Teams or some of the other things that I've had to learn to use over the last 3 months, has been the most difficult part. And frankly, I chose at some point in time, I have a large client that's in the real estate industry. I think Lori mentioned that, the real estate industry. So I had a large client that could continue to pay me. They're well capitalized. And what I did with my smaller clients was I said, hey, I'm not going to bill you anything for 3 months till I figure this out, until we figure out how we're going to do this. And I just came out of that. I just am starting with a few clients again on August 1st, and we settled on Zoom. One of them, we're doing the in-person meeting with masks. Theresa knows this, but we have a mask mandate in Minnesota that requires me to wear a mask, which frankly takes some of the uncertainty out about it. I don't know if Lori has had this, but I've had a couple of meetings with owners in person, and you used to, I had a tough time getting used to asking them what I was supposed to wear, because everybody has a different business code. Can I show up in shorts and not make you feel uncomfortable, because I'm a tie guy.
Yeah.
And now I have to ask them about the mask, which is, and first time I forgot, and I walked in and they were masked people, and I did not have a mask, and that was not a good start to that meeting.
Yeah.
And now it's, there's a lot of different things. And I think as it settles, I think the biggest thing for me is half of my clients are real estate, and I think the reason I say 7 is because I see the change is accelerating in terms of where the office is going to be. You could kind of see it coming, but now this was the tipping point, as Malcolm Gladwell, I think, did he write that book?
Yeah, I think it was tipping point. Yeah, absolutely.
The tipping point to office was this virus. So
yeah. Well, that's interesting to hear you say that as well. And you actually made a couple of really good points. The first point is the number of people who have told me that the bottom fell out of their consulting business when COVID hit was just alarming, especially those in training. I know training, consulting, different. But a lot of trainers, a lot of people lost out because it's face-to-face, exactly what you said, Patrick, before, and the second thing, and I totally agree with you, and thank you for sharing this, because the notion that if you've got clients who are struggling, to be able to go to them and say, listen, just carry on using the service, either for free, a discounted rate, but let's carry on. I've done that with my clients as well. And I'm open. I've gone to them. I specialize in LinkedIn, mostly on LinkedIn. I met Theresa through LinkedIn, met all of you guys via Theresa for LinkedIn. So LinkedIn is my thing. But now we have many different clients, and April collapsed. I mean, literally just collapsed for us. We had the worst month I've been doing in business for 20 years. We had the worst month in the history. So instead of getting down and dirty and, talking to our suppliers, can we make a negotiation? We flipped it on its head, similar to what you said, Patrick. Those clients that were struggling, we said, just carry on using the service. Just carry on. Don't pay us. Let's talk again in 3 months. Anyway, we went in internally. We looked at ourselves, and May and June were the 2 biggest months that we've ever had in our entire business. It was incredible. It completely turned everything around. And that's why I want to reiterate that, Patrick, because being good and doing the right thing and helping your clients, I think, is always going to be the number one thing. Chester, how have you felt in terms of this process? Does this resonate with you? Have you felt something similar?
Well, my context probably is a bit different. 5 years ago, I was a road warrior. I was on the road 45 to 50 weeks a year, and my wife's health failed, and she said, "You need to stay home." So I went through how do I had started out as a fairly local shop, and then I grew into someone that was traveling overseas a lot. Uh, I live on the border with Mexico. I look out my window and I can see Mexico. And
Border
here
business consultants. That's where your name
yeah,
comes from. Yeah.
exactly. There are 440 manufacturing plants in the city of Juarez, right across the river from us. And there are about probably 250 manufacturing plants here in the city. So there's a lot of local business, but they're they're global companies. And so our business started small and then grew. And then I had to pull back and get back into the local business. So I did that. But I'm in manufacturing and distribution. And my value for the customer is I walk the shop floor. I go out and I talk to the operators. I look at the process, and then we let the process, or we help the process evolve and grow. And so it's very hands-on. And now I've had to go back to pick up the training and move forward with the training. One of the things that I had to stop when I stopped traveling was I wasn't talking to customers in Eastern Europe or in Western or Eastern Asia. So I have been able to rebuild that part of my business, and I'm teaching online using Zoom, using GoToMeeting, GoToWebinar, Teams, WebEx, you name it, we do it. But we're able to do the training part of it. As our laws are right now and the way things are going, I can't even get into the city of Juarez. So, although Mexico is only 4 miles from here, I can't go there. And two of my people are in Mexico and they can't come here. So we handle our office business on a daily basis. I've also found subcontracts with other consulting firms where I have a history with them, and they trust and have confidence in what I can do, and so they've jobbed out to me. So my business is doing well. What's it going to be like in 5 years? I'm bullish. I think that our business is going to continue to go and grow. There's so much changing in the world. Manufacturing, distribution, the whole concept of circular economy, and how that's going to impact companies. And companies are starting to engage, and they want to know, how are they going to continue for the next 20, 30, 40 years? What do they have to start doing today? And so there's a lot of new ground that we haven't covered, and I think that's a real wide open opportunity.
Very good. I'm really glad, again, positivity coming from you, and you're in a unique position where you half your business is on one side of the border and the other half is on the other side of the border, which is really interesting. So it sounds to me, Chester, and forgive me for putting you on the spot here, but once again, as Patrick said, from a score perspective, can I pin you down? How do you think the change is going to be? It sounds like you're more of a 7 or an 8. I don't want to put numbers into your mouth, but how do you?
I think that it's a whole new cabinet, and those of us who can reach out and grab it, there is some real opportunity there. So I'm bullish. I'm an 8 or a 9. I think it isn't going to be smooth. It's not going to be easy, and it's not going to be like it was. But that doesn't mean there aren't opportunities there.
Great. Thank you, Chester. That's really, really interesting. Catherine, can you neither confirm nor deny the presence of a number between 0 and 10 in terms of the degree of change?
I think for the helping companies and for many industries, it's a 10. My clients that are in the cloud computing business have grown exponentially since March.
Yeah.
They've hired people over Zoom. They've onboarded people over Zoom. They've putting them to work over Zoom. So because the need was so great, because everybody's moving more further and further toward the cloud. So I think it's definitely going to be a 10 for quite a while. And it's going to be a continually evolution because we can't predict. For my business, what I do is I work with companies with 100 million to 500 million in revenue who want to accelerate the growth by igniting innovation. And I do that by helping them get the right people in the right, with the right strengths in the right roles, and creating a work environment where people feel safe to step up and speak up. And I've been doing that now where I'm in my 25th year, but I had previous to the coronavirus come up with a whole new business model that was not going to require me to be on site or to be so hands-on. What I'm offering now is to go in for 30 or 45 days and do an assessment to see what where all their growth gaps, I call them, all the obstacles, the silos, the roadblocks, the people issue, the poor performers, to get all that identified, help them develop plans of action for each of those obstacles, and then transfer my knowledge. I have a whole body of work. I have 2 books. I have so much content. Give that to the internal change agents and let them drive the change, instead of what I've been doing is 2 or 3 year engagements with this size company that would, it would take that long. It's because it's a process.
Yeah.
So
More of a train the trainer type of scenario.
Exactly. And I had put in my 2020 goals, I wanted to do 100% of my work by Zoom or telephone. I've worked from Juneau, Alaska to Brussels, Belgium over the last 25 years. And 80% of that work was over the telephone, facilitating meetings and processes. I did something in March with 18 people on Zoom where we prioritized and we developed a plan of action. So I think the technology's there. I had used WebEx and GoToMeeting and I've done some Teams, but Zoom is so much, the technology is so much better.
Yeah.
So I think a lot of I think I'm, kind of the mind canary. I think a lot of companies are like Theresa, Lori said, people are seeing, they don't need all this real estate, and people are more productive. My clients have said their people are more productive without that without that commute every day.
Yeah, we've heard that a lot, and I think that's going to come out of today's discussion. But I want to pick on something that you mentioned there, Catherine, and I'm actually going to, if anyone else wants to jump in with an answer as well before we get on to Doug, and that is this idea you mentioned: step up and speak up.
Yeah.
Now, what I've started hearing a lot more is that, and I don't think this is just a product of this kind of new normal COVID thing. I think it was happening anyway.
Right.
But it seems to be accelerated where people within an organization, maybe it's because we have an equal sized box on the Zoom screen, whereas when you're in a meeting, you don't feel you equal, or, I don't know what it is, but it seems to me that one of the big changes that is happening is this ability for those who have voices that are not as heard as often to speak up a lot more. Would you say that it was your words, step up or speak up? Do you see that as a change?
Desperately need that. Because see, when an initiative or a project is going to go south, there are always red flags. 6 years, 6 months, 6 weeks, 6 days. But the executives are too busy. They're in maniac mode, I call it.
Yeah.
Running from meeting to meeting to meeting, and no time to think strategically and connect the dots. But guess what? Some frontline accountant, frontline engineer, frontline plant manager, or one of the plant manager's people, IT person, they see the red flags, they know it. So all we have to do is create the environment for them to say, I have a concern. I have some questions that I think we need to get out on the table. And so, I think you're right. The Zoom is democratizing the idea generation. And I think it's what Darnell said. People have been coming from so much fear in the workplace my entire career. And I went to work when I was 9 years old in my dad's CPA firm in Mississippi. So I have a lot of years of history, of decades of work experience. And that we had so much fear, and now we've had the ultimate fear. You know, are we going to go out of business? Are we going to be able to handle the growth, or what is going something in between there? And so I think people are going to have to confront that fear, and all that maniac mode. In my experience, that's just fear. It's either fear or ego.
So see, I had to almost retire from the agency, so I can speak. So, you know, in the government, they still have a lot of fear to speak. And I think this political correctness is really killing both industry and government. We need to talk, and and I talk, and that wasn't normal in my environment. So I talk to a lot of folk, and that fear of saying the wrong thing, I say it, I'm saying what people thinking. Right. And then that allow the conversation to come on. Let's talk.
Feeling that. That's what I do too. I'm saying, get it out on the table in a real soft way, non-confrontational way. But we got to get the hard facts out on the table. We don't have a luxury. We don't have the luxury anymore to just sweep stuff under the rug. The poor performers.
I want to weigh in real quick on something, actually, to follow up on something Lori said, to kind of spin off of what Catherine said. So earlier, Lori had said, you know, technology is going to really take us into this next 5 years, and we're going to be able to use Zoom. And what you're saying, Catherine, is certainly true. There are more people speaking up. Here's the trick that I've found. We as consultants need to lead the way in knowing how to facilitate a meeting online that gives everyone a voice. So we have to, and then we need to teach our clients how to do that with their employees and their reports. Because oftentimes you can be on a Zoom and you're not there's an etiquette that's been developing that you're not really sure when to speak up. How do you motion that you have something to say? How do you interject? How do you do it without being rude? There's new rules and new etiquette that's needing to be developed. And as consultants, those of us especially, I've been using Zoom and conducting meetings when Zoom wasn't that fancy. Right, me too. You know, no one knew what Zoom was back in the day when I was using Zoom. So I've been doing this a long time, and that facilitation of a conversation to allow everyone in the room to have a say and invite it, because oftentimes people don't pick up on their own. We have to elicit that from them and give them a reason to respond. Absolutely. So I think, and I love what you said, Lori, earlier about, you know, technology is here to stay. It's all about how we use it, how we decide to use it, both with our clients, but I think we also have a responsibility to help our clients learn how to use it as well. To accomplish the goals and the initiatives that they've asked us to help us implement.
Yes.
Thank you.
I think the advantage with some of that is also generational, in that people my age, and I can't tell, but I think I'm among the oldest on the call.
I don't know. I don't know.
By the way, Catherine, I was delivering furniture for my dad at age 11, so you got me beat by a couple of years.
It's like the family farm.
Yeah, there is an element though in managing that's an added difficulty for people who are not of that generation. I hate to say the word millennial because it has a negative connotation, and I don't mean it that way, but that age group is used to getting in a box like this and being totally equal to someone or feeling equal to someone that owns the company. So there's good and bad with that, and you saw it. I frankly think that's what's driven a lot of the corona fear, the Rona, we call it in our family, but that's what's a lot of that groupthink has been by people who do not know how to facilitate a meeting, and you're seeing it in corporate America too, and in the small businesses I see it, where this morning I woke up to a text. I probably shouldn't say, well, why not? A text with a letter from a key employee at one of my clients who wrote a 3-page letter, and this company's struggling to get through the coronavirus, and she wrote a 3-page letter about everything that's wrong with the company this morning. And it's like, so there's this management of knowing when to speak and knowing when not to speak and how to facilitate that through.
Yeah. You guys are making some, it's it's starting to really, I can feel the conversation starting to get now to a level where we're starting to say some really interesting things, because the concept of how the conversation is changing. And I can say, Donnell, you say you like to speak your mind. I'm the same. And one thing I've learned today is business consultants do not like picking a number between 1 and 10. Okay, let's just get that. And Doug, you're about to go next, so you're welcome to prove me wrong. But it sounds to me that if we just look at the conversation and the way the conversation is taking place, I think that is a very, very high rate of change coming in the next 5 years. How the conversation is spoken, facilitated, prepared for, conducted, post-conversation, and the technology used. I think there's a major change coming. Doug, you have had you're in a wonderful position because you have heard us all speak. Where do you stand?
9 to 10, no question. I'm an advocate of change, and I think it's sort of naive to ignore it. And I respect some businesses which don't appear to change very quickly. And some of my clients are Fortune 100s who have to adapt very quickly. One of the trends, I should perhaps explain that I'm a psychologist, I'm a business psychologist, and I've written several books, a lot of content, including a course on virtual leadership. I think OKRs, objectives and key results, are another example. When we look at Silicon Valley and the emergence of the biggest distribution of wealth in human history over the last 50 years, all it means is that, Scott, you know your objective and you know 3 KRs, 3 measures of that objective. And you share them with your team, not just your manager. At IBM, it's the team that does the evaluation, not just the manager anymore. So when we look at network models of organizations, it's a little bit like a virus. You know that weird image of a virus?
Yeah.
The distributed networks are in fact driving 2 things, agility and collaboration. So you asked earlier in your opening, I think, Theresa, about examples of this. I'll give you several. I think all of us need to emerge, as we have on this call, in new networks of teams. I've used Zoom since 2011. I just looked it up. That's when it started. I've used it well before then. And I've used video training for decades. When I think about the teams that I'm part of, I'll give you a few examples. Coach Source is the largest provider of executive coaches globally. There's 1,260 different countries. I'm an engagement manager with Coach Source, in part because they're great people, they pay really well, and they provide tremendous value for those leaders in any geography. It used to be that we'd find somebody in a certain geography that would reduce the travel costs, but we don't need that anymore. It's always been virtual. So now that company has exploded in growth. I won't give you the numbers, but trust me on it. The second example is the Family Business Consulting Group. I'm a psychologist in this network. It's premier, it's tremendous. I get referrals all the time. And what I notice is that family-owned businesses or closely held businesses are quicker to invest in their people than public or larger for conservative reasons and fiscal uncertainty. Well, you might expect that. Well, what does it mean when it plays out? It means, I think, that all of us can provide new content. So I've developed some new content with a woman I've never met who lives down in Texas. I'm in Nashville. And we're creating a family business coalition, body of content that's hosted on a training platform called Kajabi. Some of you are probably familiar with Kajabi. And that will be a product that'll be available to anybody in that sector. And another example is I've got another partner who happens to be in my town who's a global leader in data analytics. He does learning and development research. He's a nerd and celebrated author and such. And one of the things that we have looked at is the need for data analytics that provide a degree of assessment that's automated and can help assess, kind of like Catherine described. It certainly won't be a 30-day assessment. It might be a 30-minute. And it'll be digitized and it'll be quantitative and qualitative so that people can know more about how their business compares to others. We've used benchmarks for decades. Well, all those will be examples of new offerings that I'll have on the next iteration of my website, which comes out in a few days. The point is that if I didn't rebrand every so many years, if I didn't adapt to change, I wouldn't be modeling the new technology. We've seen examples with artificial intelligence. If I ask my phone right now, Siri, will you be my executive coach? Do you know the answer?
Yes.
No, it's not at this time. David Peterson, who's at Google, says soon we will. Just as you ask your phone, how do you repair a window in your house, we ask it for certain advice, right? So why wouldn't we ask for business consulting advice? It's naive to think otherwise. I think a lot of us will use augmented tools like that, just as physicians have for telemedicine for over 50 years.
Mhm.
So that
So when we think about some of those adaptations for technology, I think we need to embrace them.
Yes.
Not as a core business, perhaps, but if it's client-driven, definitely. Scott, you were going to ask or say something.
Yeah, you've brought up, I mean, this leads nicely into the next topic, which is the concept of new technology that you may be using over the next couple of years. And it sounds to me that you're speaking very much around the diagnostic side of consulting. So I think one of the issues that most businesses have is that in order to get consulting advice, it's like, it's not going to a doctor. The doctor says, well, give me your symptoms, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, done. You want somebody that really knows your business, sits with you, like you're a psychologist, you understand. You want the story, and you don't feel that you could just give that story to a computer. So are you feeling, though, that from a diagnostic perspective, that's going to be one of the key technologies that's going to be driving consulting in the next few years?
I not only feel it, I know it. Absolutely true. And any client does this. We have better diagnostics for how to fix your car than you do how to fix your team or organization. Why is that?
Yeah,
it's a sloppy example, perhaps, because you are infinitely complex, and when you and others interact, you're infinitely complex, if that's a word.
Right.
And it's not a mechanistic thing. We can't fix a car the way we can fix a team. However, we have to observe what's going on in those patterns of behavior. If we didn't, then we wouldn't be able to respond in appropriate ways. Let me give you an example that a bunch of nerds know. It used to be in a team, you guys are familiar probably with a 9-box model that looks at Doug's potential and Doug's performance over time, and you'd be boxed into one of these things. HR people have done this for decades, in part because it's a way to quantify our output. Well, it's ridiculous. Nobody likes it. HR people don't like it. It's subjective. And instead, what if this axis looked at 4 variables called psychological capital, PSY cap. PsyCap is infinite, it's dynamic, it's trainable, and it's comprised of 4 variables that we all need right now during COVID. So at the risk of boring you, I'll just tell you that HERO is a way to remember PsyCap. HERO. And the HERO acronym stands for hope, efficacy, resilience, and optimism. These are 4 variables that are dynamic. The American military has been taught them at no cost. And we're able to track HERO and track performance over time. Well, wouldn't that be a better measure in the next 10 years? Of
a zillion% more valuable.
Absolutely. And perhaps you're familiar with this, Catherine, in your work. PsyCap is infinite, it's out there, a bunch of nerds know about it, but a bunch of business consultants don't. Well, what if we looked at those 4 measures? Hope is the will and the way to find a cure for pandemic. Efficacy is your capacity to do your job. It's just a nerdy term for it. Resilience is your capacity to respond to previous change at that level or above. Why is it that a bunch of people go to war and come back with post-group euphoria, not depression? That's resilience. What can we learn from that group of people? And the last is optimism, which is a generalized positive affect. If we choose optimism versus pessimism, it creates business opportunities and we actually think better. It's called broaden and build.
Yeah.
Love that.
Doug, it's really interesting. And I think we're starting to, again, get into the way that the change is starting to happen. And I think the application of these models within the consulting field is something that we need to start looking at. But that's my opinion, but is it real? So let's jump back to Rick. Firstly, Rick, are you still sticking to that 2 to 3 change, or have we managed to change your plan? That's the first question. Have we changed your score? My second question to you is, from a technology perspective, do you see technology making a big impact? It may or may not be what Doug has said in terms of the diagnostic tools, but how do you see technology playing an impact in the next couple of years?
Okay. First question. As far as change, I guess one of the things I was thinking about is that, as a business, I mean, we're already in a constant state of change. We're already always looking for new opportunities to evolve, and that's something and that probably speaks more to my response. Are our clients changing? Yes, absolutely. Are we having to adapt to meet their new needs? Absolutely. But I mean, it's not something that is, drastically changing the way that we would do business. We're always going to adapt to changes in the marketplace. They're going to happen. We saw this through every recession that we've been through. As far as technology, I totally agree. I think that artificial intelligence is really going to play a lot into our work. We've got one of our partners is working on and we work with small businesses as well. So one of our partners is working on I guess an artificial intelligent way to help companies manage and predict their finances. We're doing some stuff with machine learning. We're doing a lot of work with analytics and helping our clients to understand, all the data that they have access to and what to do with it and that sort of thing. We're providing them with dashboards just as part of our service offering. So absolutely. I mean, I think technology is, and the need to adapt, continue to adapt, as technology changes, I think is critical. We've been using Zoom. We've been working with clients pretty much across the country, through Zoom, through Skype, whatever it was. It was something that, we needed to do. We needed to be able to give them access to us. We need to be able to speak to them, on a regular basis. That engagement is critical. Being in front of these people versus on the phone is critical. We need to see body language and, try to understand, really, really what's going on. We need to be able to see people at their level. Whether they're at the executive level or they're at the team level, we've got to be able to talk to people and communicate in a way that makes people comfortable and allows us to be transparent and
Rick, I think you said something quite wise as well. It's wise. I mean, we can technology can change and Zoom comes along and the diagnostic tools, but at the end of the day, we're still kind of the same sort of people doing things in a similar way. And it's almost like the more things change, the more they stay the same in a way. And I think that is a wise look at it. And I think while things are changing, we still have to remember that I don't think the core of who we are is going to be that radically different in the next 5 years. And as consultants, as business consultants, we're dealing with companies all the time, and companies are people. So yeah, some wise words. I'm going to jump across to Theresa quickly. I mean, Theresa, do you want to jump in quickly and just give us some insight on what you've heard so far?
Really great feedback. Thank you, everyone. And it's not surprising. This is what I know of my consultants that I already work with is we are for the most part optimistic. We are opportunity seizers. We are I think Darnell said it so well. He's a problem solver. We're all problem solvers. So we actually thrive when there's problems because then we solve them. And we are those that take the lead on that. And that's why we are consultants. And so from that standpoint, it's not surprising to hear a lot of the feedback. I think as it relates to AI and some of the technology in my business, what it's allowing me to do as a sales trainer and a sales coach. So I help consultants sell better, close more sales, and for the most part, non-traditional salespeople is what I adoringly refer to my consultants as, because most of you as consultants have never taken a sales course. You've never taken sales training. I have 25 years of sales training in the trenches in a lot of different industries across many different sizes of businesses. And so with that perspective, I bring that forward. And when I work one-on-one with my clients in helping them sell and helping them land larger contracts, what I find is the one-on-one work is very time consuming because we're taking recorded calls, we're debriefing those, we're giving new marching orders, how to make it better, how to negotiate, all of that. Lead generation is all a part of that. The AI that I have now enables me to serve more people and be more efficient. And so I think both with the technology that we help our clients with, as well as the technology we help ourselves with, it isn't that it's replacing anything, but it's augmenting and making us more effective and more efficient and able to do more with less time if you're using the tools appropriately. There are those tools that will always suck more time than they're worth, and that's all about just planning the process before you use the platform. And so figuring out what you want to happen and what needs to happen, what are the processes within the business, and then how does technology support that, not do it for you. And I think that's oftentimes when we talk about CRMs and things like that for non-traditional salespeople, we think, well, it's in the CRM, it's magically going to do it, and it doesn't. And so for me, technology in 5 years, I see my business scaled at a much larger level. I don't see it being me. I think it's going to be multiple people. I'm going to have other direct reports that I can collect data from my clients and then have my supporting staff be able to make reviews and work with clients and coach and things like that. So in 5 years, I won't be where I am today. And I'm really excited about that. And it's because of a lot of this change and because things have changed so much, I'm moving right now into a space where working more with teams, corporate teams and sales teams, because technology is booming so radically. There are a ton of startups that are needing a lot of sales help. So just directing a little bit of what I'm doing over there while I continue to help my consultants as well. So, the technology is a big piece for me, for sure. And again, I think it's what we've all said. We will ebb and flow, and we will be nimble with whatever comes. And our greatest obligation is to our clients to help show them how to do that too, because we are the change makers. We chose to be consultants, to be guides, and to be consultants and advisors and trusted advisors.
Yeah.
And so all the experience that we have really is in great need to help them navigate, because they just don't have the cross section of knowledge that we all bring in being able to kind of moderate some of that fear. We're not in a little silo. We've got a nice wide perspective, and we can say objectively, this is how we need to move forward because this is what's best.
Yeah.
The world is not falling apart. The sky is not falling, but we will make some changes and be nimble in the process.
Yeah, thank you, Theresa. And this is definitely the time for business consultants. It's a time needed. And you mentioned, Theresa, that business consultants, most of them have never done a sales course in their life. And I understand that, because sales, we have a way that we look at sales. But look at what's happened today. So what you guys are doing today, you might not be selling, but you are coming onto a discussion to talk about what you know best. And that is the entry point, because when people see you talking with authority, like what you're doing today, that is when people buy the trust. That is when people will get to know you. And that's how you start to get in the door. Then you can talk about the stuff that you need to talk about. And that is sales, but it's a soft selling approach. And I like what you said about that. So what I'm really enjoying about this is you guys are standing up and saying what needs to be said. I'm going to now combine, because of time, the second and the third question. So you guys are welcome to answer, both. The second question was, of course, around technology. And Donnell, I'm going to jump to you now. If you're feeling that over the next 5 years in your business and with your clients, are you going to be pushing any new technology, or do you feel any new technology is going to be assisting you in any way? That was the one question, and you can answer one or both of them. The second question, are you looking for additional sources of revenue? Do you feel the need you've got to go in a different path?
Okay, I will answer both with one answer. Basically, because who I'm dealing with the most powerful agency in the universe. They have the smartest people in the world that work there. I work with universities. So as far as technology is concerned, they are pushing change. So, but the government people themselves is hard to change, but I'm working with people that, how can I say, like the universities, most of the major universities, whether it's Harvard, Yale, and I'm dealing with that government client trying to get that knowledge to try to change. Government is always slow to change, and their role is not to hamper technology. Their role is to sometimes slow it down, because they want to make sure that we don't destroy each other with technology. So as far as my business is concerned, that's why I stayed with my present client, is because they are on the cutting edge. They hear it all. They hear the Intels, they hear the AMDs, they are talking with the CEOs, and they dealing with the scientists that's out there. That's some things you don't even know about. They're the FDAs and the CDCs and all these companies that's trying to compete against COVID or trying to get a vaccine. That's the business I'm in. So as far as technology, we're futuristic. So technology is it's there. I'm always changing. If you don't change, you don't die. My job is to help folks who don't want to change, and then have a conversation with even those folk that I disagree with, and they try to shout you down. My job is to I'm one of those, I don't get offended easily. So I have a conversation, even on the politics side of the house. So, you know, that keeps me working, because these guys people have to know that change is here, and if you don't change, you die. And that's the simple. I usually tell one of the guys I work with, one of the businesses I work with, and he liked this. I told him my vision is his vision. When I go tell people, when they go for an interview, I tell the person, your job is to get them promoted. They usually get the job. My job is to get you. My job is your business, to serve you. Whatever you want me to do, my job is to do it. Try to find a way to get that technology or whatever.
Thank you, Donnell. That's a really good. I like that. You make some really good points there. And in terms of, let's jump to Patrick. So Patrick, I mean, from a technology perspective and from a revenue perspective, I mean, do you see technology changing, but also do you feel the need to change your revenue stream? Do you feel the need to look for different revenue models?
Well, I do. I in my world, I don't think they're necessarily related, but I do. I do see both. In other words, I came up in the accounting finance world, and still I'm teaching at the college level a couple of classes, and where I see the change is in the analytic part of the jobs, not only in accounting finance, but in other things. In other words, I do think that AI is going to replace a lot of the spreadsheet jockeying that goes on, that used to go on when, that was a big part of coming up through, I came up the classic way through public accounting, a big public accounting firm. And, the people that could analyze were the people that were valuable. And then what I find is that there's still a call, and this is what I'm doing now, to interpret that. And that's where, from a consulting perspective, experience, the willingness to speak up and to give your opinion, interpret data is where I think our world is going. I think we're going away from the commodity of I'm going to do a spreadsheet for you, and I'm going to plan this out for you. I spend probably a third of my time in real estate, and that's the only place I still see that, is where, they'll have me model things, but, I try to steer it towards what you want to hear is my opinion. I have an opinion, otherwise you shouldn't be paying me to do this. But I do think that's where AI is gonna make a huge impact in the accounting financial world, in terms of analyzing the data, but people will still need to interpret it. In terms of me, I do think that I'm looking right now at adding some revenue streams. I'm looking at adding some HR abilities, to do more HR consulting, to do, I've worked with, again, as a CFO, you kind of touch a lot of different things. So I've touched a lot of different things, and I just see the need in my clients to provide more services, because I see gaps. You see gaps.
I think that nails it. Yeah, I think.
So I just rebranded. I rebranded around that, Scott. I rebranded and created a motto or a theme around gaps. And so I'm trying to add HR. I'm trying to add. I'm talking with a business broker right now, trying to get the ability to buy and sell businesses, in the state of Minnesota. So yeah.
Well, that's it. So those exactly answers my question, because you're looking at those different revenue streams, and I love that I see gaps, by the way. I think that's great. Yeah, no, that's what consultants do. It's not about a whole bunch of data, as you call it, spreadsheet jockeying. It's about the ability to see those gaps. It's that classic story of the shipbuilder who can't figure out, I think he's got a big ship and he can't figure out why the ship there's something wrong with it, and brings in the expert, and he taps and goes ding. He says, "This is your problem." And he goes, "Here's my 10,000 pounds, and he goes, "Why you only spent 5 minutes?" And he goes, "Yeah, well, that's why, because, my knowledge is knowing where to tap. So you're welcome to, to find someone else." And that
data,
looking for those gaps. Absolutely. So yes, thank you for your patience, Laurie and Catherine. I know that you've been waiting patiently, and I'm going to get to you now because it's really important that we hear everything you have to say, specifically these two questions. But let's go to Chester, the border man. Again, Chester, from a technology perspective, do you see that changing your game? And are you looking for alternative sources of revenue?
As far as the impact of technology, yeah, one of the things that we do is we look at what's out there, what's coming, and then figure out whether or not that's going to work for the client. Is there a need for that? Or when we look at the client's needs, is there a technology that could help them? So we've been evolving and growing, and the rate of change has gone up. The acceptance of change has not. And so part of our job is to, as Darnell was saying, we need to put the idea, the concept, the creative work into it, and then we need to be able to put the lubricant around it so that it slides into place, as opposed to we have to take people out of the picture and do this job and then put people back into it. So our skills are not necessarily involved with the technology itself. Our skills are in working with people to get them to accept the technology more quickly. So yes, I think technology is going to have an impact, but manufacturing and distribution and those places are always a little bit slow to change. They're not quite like the government, but they're slower to change than other types of businesses. They're not agile. If you go to a General Motors assembly plant or you go to a Toyota assembly plant, those people are not agile. They are going to produce their 2,500 cars a day. That's it. And whatever has to be done to do that, that's what they're going to do. And so that's the environment that we're working in. Am I looking for other revenue streams? Revenue streams keep coming to me. And so it's a matter of deciding what I want to do and what I can fit into the framework. Since I own my own business and the people who work for me are somewhat like-minded, but totally different people. And we work in multiple languages. There's just so many opportunities out there. It's a matter of choice. Which opportunity do I want to take advantage of next?
Yeah, agreed. Chester, thank you so much. There's definitely some very wise words there, and I agree. We want the revenue streams to come to us. Laurie, are revenue streams coming to you?
They are not. So Chester, you're in a good spot. I am in a, I want to say unique position. I've been pivoting my business a bit, trying to decide exactly what kind of client I want to serve. And again, I'm really focusing on the small business. And so a lot of those folks are struggling because I'm talking about entrepreneurs just starting off and establishing businesses.
Yeah.
So I've been doing a lot of things for free and just supporting them and giving them information. The other revenue stream that I started actually before COVID was public speaking. So of course that also kind of came to a screeching halt. There was a number of things. Actually, I was going to speak at Modern Day Marine at Quantico, Darnell, but that's canceled now. And there are a lot of things that have been postponed or canceled. So I'm working on some of those things and getting that back up and running. But again, I would just like to say back to did your numbers change? So what I had said was, from a year ago or even 6 months ago, 100% has changed. But from where it is today, no, I don't see it changing. That would then be the zero because, and I still feel that way even based on the conversation because the client I serve is a very specific niche and and market, and so their needs are pretty basic, and I think that my interaction with them would be the same.
You know, Laurie, you and I have got something in common. I'm a huge fan of small businesses, and mainly because I love dealing with personalities, as Theresa will tell you, individual personalities. And I've always taught my clients and the people that I've dealt with, also do a lot of speaking. And I created this podcast for that reason, because it's personalities. Honestly, when people first meet you, no one cares what Rick's company name is. Do any of you even remember what Rick's company name is? Do you care? No. Why? Because Rick is the guy we care about. Who's going to forget Donnell's personality? He's out there speaking like it. You know, no one's going to forget Patrick. And Patrick, I don't think you're the oldest. Let's be fair. You know, it's your personalities. It's your the border man, Chester. You know, so Laurie, I hear you. And the small business for me is the catalyst to the future. And your personalities are what make it happen. So I've got a huge amount in common with you. And I started scottcundill.com so I can give people like you a platform to get your personality across. Because when people hear you speaking with authority and trustworthiness, and the fact Laurie just said, you know, I'm helping small businesses for free because I love them and they need help right now. They are struggling. The credibility that gives you as a consultant goes through the roof, not because you're offering free advice, but because you're willing to do it. And, you know, you've echoed this. And I think that's such an important thing to say. I mean, I don't want you to finish off just yet, Laurie, but is that this, have I got your sentiment correctly?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And I worked in corporate America for many, many years. And I only started my consulting business last October is when I really launched it, just in time. But Theresa, to your point, my first client as a consultant was a sales school. So even though, yes, I totally agree, I am probably the worst salesperson ever. My client was a sales school, so I got to listen in on all of that stuff, which was pretty cool. But yes, I really want to see those people who have a passion for, they have that idea, they have that drive, they have something that they really have to offer the world. And for some reason, they just haven't been able to do it until this point. And now they're, you know, it's the launching off point and they're ready to start. And I just want to support that. It's very hard to start your own business. And I think it's important that they be supported. So.
Wonderful, Laurie. Thank you. And I'm going to ask Theresa to finish off after we hear from Catherine, because I know Theresa's got a lot to say on that point of it, this notion that people think they can't sell. And I totally understand. Sales has got nothing to do with sales. To get those big deals, you know, it's about building the credibility and the trust, and then understanding. And this is the kind of thing. And that's why I love the technology in my business to allow people like you to hear your personalities. It's just a wonderful way to bond and to hear your authenticness. I've already got people I want to introduce to you guys already. But Catherine, wow, man, we've heard some very, very interesting points today. How are you feeling? I mean, you've obviously used technology around, but do you feel that AI is going to take over the world? Do you feel?
Oh, yeah, I've done a ton of it in healthcare, and the radiologists are already outsourced. The computer can analyze X-rays better than, and the whatever imaging better than the doctors can. And I was a CPA too, because my dad was a CPA, and like Patrick said, all that menial, you know, so boring work, that's all gonna, even tax returns are gonna be, instead of us having to, you know, do the data entry, they're just gonna sync with the financial statements and make the adjusting journal entries and all that. So it's gonna take a higher level of consultant to be able to really advise. They're not looking to us to build the spreadsheets for sure. But I wanted to say something that's really important that hasn't come out. I brought it up in my first comments a little bit. So I think that the world's gone to hell in a handbasket over my career. And I think it's because of the smartphone. I think that none of us on this call and none of our clients have enough time to think strategically and connect the dots. And that's what got me out of Mississippi. And it's what got me out of my miserable CPA career, was taking that strategic think time to connect the dots and look at the big picture about what's most important to me. Like Darnell said, what do you want? I can help you get there. Well, what did I want? I had to figure that out. So I have an ebook I'm going to send to all of you, and feel free to share it with your clients. Wow. It's on 9 simple, practical time management habits. The first 6 are, if you use them, you'll create white space on your calendar. all your clients need white space on their calendar. And then the last 3, 7, 8, 9 are what to do with that white space now that you have it. So I'm trying to start a movement here to get people out of maniac mode and have time to connect the dots, because that's what's going to take to move through this pace of change is not slowing down.
Maniac mode.
Maniac mode. We can't be out of maniac mode 100% of the time, 24/7, but just to have some snippets, you know, here and there in your work day, in your work week.
Yeah.
So Chester's, he's almost as old as me, and he's smiling right now. He knows this. I mean, the world was different when we started, and now people are just back to back to back in meetings, no time to regulate their liquids or get a snack. And we're no different than toddlers. We need our snacks at the right time. We need our naps at the right time. So we need that white space on our calendar. So I'll share that all with you by email, and I look forward to staying connected.
Thank you. The white space issue is a good important one. You know, it's been clearing that diary, and I agree with that. And yeah, you make an important point, and I can see it. You know, some of us have to pivot. I think we've all had to rethink, readjust. You know, as Rick said at the beginning or halfway through, you know, we might be changing on the surface, but we're still the same kind of people. And I think there's an innate wisdom in that. I think that's a good comment. You know, we do need new revenue streams. I look for revenue streams as well. Patrick mentioned you're looking for alternative revenue streams and some good ideas that we can look at. You know, writing ebooks, you know, training material, finding other words, offering HR consultancy, because at the end of the day, you're dealing with people. And Catherine, to kind of bring it all home, you know, you mentioned, you know, the days of, I don't know what you would call it, almost like kind of grassroots consulting, you know, what somebody called the accounting jockey, the spreadsheet jockeys. They're not needed.
Spreadsheet jockey, yeah.
Yeah, spreadsheet jockeys. You, Patrick. Yeah. We need proper strategic thinkers with the ability to be able to get a big picture very quickly and offer that advice, the one who knows where to tap. And that's where I think we're looking at. And I think that's a really exciting place to be. And, you know, the notion that, oh no, you know, we're not salespeople. You don't need to be a salesperson. No. It's not about selling. It's about understanding. And I want to let Theresa actually comment on that, because she really is the specialist in that regard.
Yeah, sales is my DNA at 25 years. So my first job, although I might be just a couple years younger than most of you on the call, my first job was dog walking. And I went door to door, knocked on the door and said, can I walk your dog for $5 a week? And I had a brood of dogs within 2 or 3 days. So it's about the hustle, but not the negative connotation of hustle. Remember, this is about looking for problems. This is about looking for just what, Laura, you were saying about you really want to serve, you really want to help. And, you know, when we are out there helping and sewing into what we're doing, I mean, Chester is doing that in the manufacturing world, and we've got Patrick in the CPA world and the government. We got a great cross section here. And then Rick is, I forget what industry, Rick, you said. I apologize. Tell me again.
Oh, it's most small businesses, actually.
Small businesses, okay. And right now, more than ever, small businesses need what we have, because they don't have the palette of experience in many cases to be able to chart these waters. So with that, what I tell all of my clients, selling is serving. Selling is not what we think it is. Selling is serving and solving. And so when we are out there talking to people and saying, and you know, and what's missing for most small businesses, and I consider all of us for the most part small businesses, is the proactive approach to finding those problems and having those initial conversations. And we don't do that because we have this stigma of selling, and it's the used car salesman in the plaid suit and the cigar, and we don't want to be like them. But here's the thing, we're the beacon, we are the lighthouse in the distance, in the fog for a lot of these businesses, and the solutions we have for them are so critical. And I often equate this to, and it might seem a little dramatic, but there's a core meaning to this, and the fact that if you had the cure to cancer, if you could cure any kind of type of cancer, would you stop at anything to get that into the world? And all of my consultants say no, of course not. I would be shouting it from the rooftops and banging down doors and running through the streets. But here's the beauty, guys. You guys have the cure to business cancer. You have the cure to the cancer in each of your different industries, in each of your different types and methods. for the cancer that's killing businesses and killing, quite honestly, owners who are suffering, owners who are struggling, owners who thought they were building a legacy and suddenly they're up against a pandemic. They're up against bad bookkeeping. They're up against challenges with staff. They're up against misalignments and conflict and all of these things that they're like, why did I do this? Why did I get into business? It shouldn't be this hard. And yet we're here to help guide them and make it maybe not easier, but more enjoyable so they can build the legacy that they meant to get into business for. So changing your perspective about what sales is. And the second step of that is quite honestly just creating the process that's manageable for each of you in your business. So what are the daily steps, the tiny micro steps that I have to take every day to make sure that I'm moving the ball forward? What can I do today? Who can I talk to? And it isn't about going out on the internet and mass blasting and all that crazy stuff, because a lot of marketing gurus would tell you to do that. And they would tell you to go post on LinkedIn and write articles and do all this busy work. But at the end of the day, if you are in conversations, if you are in the places where your ideal clients are living, breathing, and having conversations, and you insert yourself with helpful information, ladies and gentlemen, that's selling. Yeah. That's selling, because ultimately you're building a relationship that will hopefully, with your expertise matched with their problem and their need for the solution, will end up in a transaction of some sort. And isn't it great to do business with friends? Because if we create friends first and we create those relationships, they will ask you to help. They will ask you and invite you in to help. But if we're not out having conversations, or worse yet, we're building fancy funnels and all of these inbound marketing tactics that build it and they will come, we will sit in our cubicles, otherwise known as our homes these days, and we will starve. And so from the standpoint of sales, every single one of you, in talking to you today, I know are capable of those sales. And many of you probably already know that. For those of you who don't know that, let me reassure you, you are certainly capable of selling, but it's in the context of serving and solving. And I think if that mindset, if that can be permanent, if that can be adopted and internalized and made permanent, you can do anything you want in your business to move that ball forward. Now, the rest is just logistics. The rest is just process and systems and step-by-step types of things that you engage in every day. And then when we get to the conversation part, that's another art. That's another little art and science combination that we kind of have to chart the waters on to be successful more consistently. So I love sales. It's my I don't know. I don't know what I would do.
But, I want to just mention as well, and just to finish off, the platform that you're on now, and, you can hear, Theresa speaks with a lot of confidence, and you listen to her, and you can hear that. And we often think to ourselves, we're not like that. And the reason why I do these panel discussions to hear you all speak is when each one of you spoke today, you are as, if not more, authentic and credible than anyone else. Because in your specific niche, you are that expert. And that's why I love these panel discussions. It's not a webinar where it's a one-way broadcast. We get to hear you. And thank you for coming on today, ladies and gentlemen, because you added so much value.
I leave you with two things.
Sure,
Communication and relationship. Communication and relationship equals sales. Yeah. Communication, relationship equals sales.
That's right. And what have we done today? You guys are communicating. You've given, we're going to talk to the industry beyond that. This video is your first step, hopefully of many, to go and get your word out there and to carry on, because we will help get this out there. And by doing that, get you out there. They will hear you speaking with credibility. That's the communication that you mentioned. And now we're building relationships together. We know we've met each other. And just on that note, Catherine, you mentioned your book. I hope if you guys got anything, send it to me. I'm going to be sending this video out to each one of you guys with everybody's email address, obviously privately, just our little group. Get in touch. Let's connect on LinkedIn. Let's keep this little family we've started creating alive. You guys have been absolutely amazing. Please give yourself a huge round of applause. You've been hugely valuable, hugely authentic. And
so fun.
Rock.
So fun.
Yeah.
And thank you again, each and every one of you, for taking the time. Time is precious and time is valuable, and it is not taken for granted, your investment of time today. And I just want to thank you for your insights and input, your time, and thanks for being a new friend.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.